All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, we are going to talk about a comment I heard in an interview with Dr. Phil, and it was striking in how much it it was just a big number. And so I had
Hmm.
to follow up on it, and I found where it came from, and I don't know if it's better or worse what I found. So we'll go into that. It was about years of life lost in our youth based on the lockdowns. Then, depending on how much we might want to bring up some of the topics we talked about a couple social episodes ago, which had a lot of views for some reason. I don't know if I just really named it well or YouTube liked us for a second and we got some followers and some comments out of it. So thank you for following, by the way. Uh, Happy to have you on board, and we'll go from there. Can you hear me well? Because I turned the gain way down because there's someone talking and laughing in the other room. So
Nope, you're good because that's all I can hear is you. So we're good there. Um,
let me pause this for a second. Sorry, alarm went off. Sorry for the hiccup right in the beginning, but I forgot I had set a sprinkler for my garden because keeps being humid here, but not raining. And the slight mini rant. Did you see the article? If I would have thought about this, I would have had it pulled up. The article that says gardening is contributing to global warming. Your home gardens.
weren't haven't the hippies been telling us for years that we need to, home garden and grow your own vegetables and
Okay,
things
for
and
those that don't know us, I am the hippie.
yeah.
And remember now, I'm far right extremist because I have my own garden and I have spare food and it, I don't use pronouns. So yeah, it's or I don't force my pronouns. I do use pronouns when I do speak in but and but I don't force people to use my pronouns and so no, there's two things here. This might be related. This could segue us to our COVID conversation because why is that? Why is global warming threatened by my home garden? I'm actually creating more oxygen in pulling in CO2 by having my garden. Oh, wait. They're buying the globalists are buying up all the farmland. They want you to buy their food. And oh, wait. Fresh garden food, homegrown, is healthier. So you're not going to be sick as much buying as many drugs. So yeah, not that there's a connection there, no conspiracy at all, no converging of interests, I should say. I mean, that's different than a conspiracy, converging of interests.
Yeah.
I own the farmland. I don't want you growing your own food. And on the other side is I sell you drugs. I don't want you being healthy.
Well, and this actually be the useful idiots part of this, those who are going to believe and then and spread this, actually ties in to last time in our political gender gap, because I was finishing up listening to Eric Weinstein on Modern Wisdom because it's a freaking 3 hour interview. It took me a while to get through.
Yeah,
Um,
Eric doesn't do less than 3 hours. Have you ever
yeah,
watched his podcast, The Portal?
no.
Yeah, it's hard to watch because it's always over 3 hours. I'm good for a long one with Rogan and stuff, but
Mhm.
always over 3 hours kind of gets oof.
Well, in the last hour, they get into this point. Williamson brings up the data on boys, teens moving farther right, and Weinstein makes the point of, well, yeah, where else are they going to go? And it's not so much that they're becoming conservative or they're moving to the political right, so much that they're abandoning the crazy.
Hmm.
They're abandoning the crazy because we have created a plethora of false dichotomies. And yes, technically we have a binary political system. That doesn't mean that everything is binary. That doesn't mean that everything is either A or B. Either you are saving the world or destroying the world. No, I just want to grow my own tomatoes because they taste better.
Yeah, well, my big one is kale. You know, a lot of people that say, "Oh, I hate kale, you hippies. I hate your health food." Try homegrown kale versus store-bought kale
Yeah.
because they spray shit on there that keeps it fresh in the store for a lot longer. But if you
Hmm.
grow it at home and you pick it, wash it off, and eat it, it is a world different in flavor. Same with spinach
Yeah.
and all the other greens. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the useful idiots are going to buy into the false dichotomy and start screaming about you're destroying the planet the same way they have done with everything else, every step along the way here of you're destroying the planet with, you know, first it was this, then that, then this, then that, then and on the down the line we go. And it's not that you're suddenly now the ultra right conservative prepper. You're just doing what you've always done. You're doing what you grew up doing, hanging out with your grandfather. This
Who was a lifelong Democrat who probably voted for FDR his entire life because he was around during the Dust Bowl. I mean,
Mhm.
that
Exactly. And we have utterly destroyed the idea of nuance. And uh um I got this. I got flamed a little bit because I couldn't help myself leaving a comment on one of the more recent World War II videos from the World War II channel that I watch because it was about the kind of the mopping up of Manila, the Battle of Manila, and you know there were a bunch of commenters just piling on MacArthur because he was a narcissistic egomaniac. Well, that was true, but we've gone a little bit overboard with the MacArthur hate because it was also true that he genuinely felt an affection for the Filipino people and felt that the United States had betrayed them by abandoning them and by not they were our responsibility, and that it would be a great stain on America's national moral character if we abandon the Filipino people. And there was a sizable contingent in both the civilian and military leadership that thought we don't need to go to the Philippines. We can bypass and either go to Taiwan or go straight to Okinawa or whatever. We don't need to just bypass the Philippines. It's a lot of blood and treasure we don't need to expend. And his point was, yes, we do. We have a moral obligation. It's going to be bloody and it's going to be costly, but we have a moral obligation to do it and to signal to the world and to posterity that America will do this even if it costs us. And there's a nuance there that needs to be understood because yes, MacArthur was a crazy narcissistic egomaniac that led him to in Korea getting fired because he wouldn't keep his mouth shut about things that he probably needed to keep his mouth shut about so he didn't start nuclear Armageddon. But it's also true that he was a person and people are complicated. People are messy. People are more than just one or two things. Um, I think it was I just brain farted on who played him. The biopic of whoever it was who played him. Uh, was it George C? No, it wasn't George C. Scott. Anyway, I just remember the actor saying he didn't like MacArthur going into the movie, and he thought he was going to kind of be playing the villain, and then he developed a respect for him in studying for the role. That even if he didn't like him, even if he didn't agree with him, he gained a respect for him because saw all the he saw all the gray area that you don't get if you just read the headlines.
Well, speaking of things you don't get if you just read the headlines, let's talk about Dr. Phil. So this is an article. I heard him talking about this. He was on. Think I heard him on the Rubin Report. But
He's been making the rounds. Does he have a new book or something? Because
he does have a book, but also people wonder why he has all of a sudden gone against the grain. He has his own network now. He is not beholden to the network advertisers
hmm,
because now he can say yes or no to advertisers. So I think that's what's loosened his lips a little bit. His livelihood does not depend on brought to you by Pfizer anymore. Or
that's a good point because I don't remember who it was. Someone made the point. It wasn't that long ago that Matt Walsh first kind of came to national prominence on Dr. Phil, where Dr. Phil had like four. Rainbow Mafia crazies ganging up on Matt Walsh. And then all of a sudden now he's going on The View saying, why are we doing these things to our children? And the View audience is standing up and applauding.
Yeah, and I think on his show that was on network TV, not his network TV, but what was he on, ABC or something?
Yeah.
He he was really trying to push that envelope, and I think if you really look in hindsight with hindsight bias, you can see he never had to have Matt Walsh on.
Mm,
He could have had some. I mean, Matt Walsh is right wing, but he could have had some right wing reactionary hack on,
mm,
not someone who knew what they were talking about. And he also had James Lindsay
yeah.
on some of these. So he actually, I think that was his little sticking it in there without bucking the system. So yeah, the Matt Walsh was outnumbered. Lindsay was outnumbered and had less talk time versus the other ones to butter up the audience. But also, I think he knew what he was doing on getting the people who could actually get their point across without being so reactionary that it leads to more of the, oh, those are just right wing bigots.
Hmm.
And so I think he knew what he was doing. He was just trying to do it subtly, but now that his hands aren't tied, he's just throwing haymakers now. But he was talking about lockdowns, and this is one of his big issues, and this is what he was talking about on The View as well. So this article says a lot of the same things. Now, I know it is Daily Wire, so it is a very biased source, but I'm using his words to get to where the source came from. Because when I heard the words, I went, what the hell? That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the statement he makes, if I can scroll down to it, I think I have it highlighted already. Maybe I don't. Okay. Do you see anything about 15 million? Yeah, here we go.
Yep.
Yes, here we go. Here's the statement right here. Epidemiological pediatricians estimate that it will cost somewhere around 15 million years of life lost to these kids. That's a lot of life.
Hmm.
Now, if every kid lost a little bit, then it's like what? Uh 15 going into 50, 1/3 and change. About a third of a year of life. That doesn't sound like a lot, but some kids are going to be more affected than others, which I have data to support that coming up as well. So 50 million life years lost. So when you're looking at data, it's like you look at the people died, but you look at the life years lost to think of the overall cost. So if an 85-year-old man died, you wouldn't really count that against life years lost because life expectancy is like 76.1 or something for my generation. So if I live till I'm 85 and then I die of something, you'd be like, well, you're going to die of something anyways at that age.
Hmm.
But if I died at 75, you would say there was one life year lost. So I died prematurely of something. And so that's what that means. So this is premature death amongst the kids that were on lockdown. And it's based on a lot of factors. But I wanted to know where this number came from because I said that's a lot. That's a bold statement.
Yeah. When someone says something like that, you should go, oh, well, wait a minute. How are you getting that?
Now, my first uh, hit on looking for this was this subcommittee on coronavirus pandemic, the consequences of school closures intended and unintended. This is testimony in front of the subcommittee in Congress, and Tracy Hogue has done a lot of work. So anybody want to look up more of her stuff? She's done a lot of work in this uh, kind of realm. But first of all, let's stop here. This isn't where I was going, but I forgot about this chart. On the left in this chart, in the blue, that's the fatality rate of influenza in any given year. So let's zoom in on that. Oh, you still can't see the year numbers. Here we go. Okay, so any given year, influenza deaths per year. And the orange on the right is COVID deaths in 2020 to 2022. So these are ranges. Never did Corona COVID ever threaten the average mean death rate over flu. And remember, if we looked at some of the charts we brought up in previous episodes, there was almost no flu recorded in kids.
Hmm.
Maybe because they had flu and COVID because it's a respiratory disease and they both are. And the kids are always passing everything around all the time. So if you were to add flu to that based on the numbers, there would be a little blip of blue on top of that. So when we talk about respiratory virus threat to children, we're no more than any other given year. There's some outliers. What is that? 2011, 2012 is low, 2013 to 2014. But
Well,
realistically,
look at the inset there. The 2020 to 2021 influenza burden estimate was too low to be estimated by the CDC, despite high testing. 1,675 tests were positive. Consequently, 2010 to 2020 seasonal average was used in calculations for 2020 to 2021.
yeah,
Yikes.
yeah, yikes. So it's so looking at this, we had a very low rate one year and we had an extreme spike the next. And then we had an extremely low rate the next year. You can speculate on why that is. But other than that little spike and low rates
Mhm,
surrounding it, you pretty much got a mean that's about double
mhm.
what COVID did to kids. So, just read that as you will. But let's go to why we came here.
Oh, was this chart just for children?
Just for children.
Okay.
School age up to 11, I believe. We'll get the number on the age here in a second. Here we go. So this is where the number comes from. Children lost an estimated 14 million years of life in the US based on the closures through the spring of 2020 alone. In districts such as Los Angeles Unified School District, more than half of the students never logged on at all in the spring of 2021 and the fall of 2020. Excuse me, 2020 and the fall of 2021.
Great googly moogly.
Uh, and then shown in figure three, I don't have their figure three, but I have the study where it comes from. Within their states were the ones that schools with the highest poverty levels within their states were the ones that were closed the longest. So the study that they got this from is here back in 2020. Estimation of U.S. children's educational attainment and years of life lost associated with primary school closures during the coronavirus disease.
Did, hold on. This shouldn't be a surprise because we've talked about this before
Well,
in the adult world of the laptop class. Well,
mhm.
the laptop class is going to have one, is more likely to have high IQ children themselves, and two, is more likely to have the setup and the ability to make sure that their children are logging on to go to virtual school, right? So it makes sense that in the same way that the lockdowns disproportionately impacted the non-laptop class working individual, the same thing is going to be true of the school individual child.
Don't worry, they're going to get theirs. There's a reverse virus coming for the laptop class.
Oh, goody.
And that's not some sort of threat or something YouTube from me. It's just it's just my analysis of AI. AI is going to kill the laptop class before it does the working class. Uh, okay, so this is where this is the findings here. So the what there okay, so let's take this with a somewhat grain of salt because if you've listened to this channel for a while, you know me and mathematical models will go round and round.
Mhm.
But at the same time, my beef is this study is not new. What's the publication date?
2020 November.
2020 November. Yes. So this would have been nearing the end of the second semester of schools being closed. Our schools in Texas were already open again.
Mhm.
So there are schools that went to, I mean, I'll have it. I'll have it in a second, how long some schools were closed. But yeah, so we knew this. We knew this is just the first semester. So then they triple it by the for the estimates in the other testimony. because of where they were in the process at that point. So, so yeah, and one could argue that this would actually be exponential because the kids that are out for a semester, this is the estimated years lost. Well, the kids that are out for 2 semesters, those kids are going to have even a greater detriment. And I don't think it's a mathematical addition. I
Yeah.
think it's a because of the way developmental years work in learning, it's an exponential number. And then those that were out for 3 semesters add another exponent to that. So it's not 2 + 2 = 4 plus 2 = 6. It's 2 × 2 = 4 times 2 = 8.
Hmm.
So that I mean that's just me speaking, from my own interpretation of how things would go, but developmental psych, everything uh, between the so if you take developmental ages, 1 to 3 months is as much development as 3 months to 18 months, which is as much development from 18 months to 6 years, which is as much development from 6 years to adolescence, which is as much development from then on to adulthood. So if you drew of how much you develop in these different phases, you would have the same amount of development with greater age ranges. That's
Well,
that that's where these kids are.
pop psychology stereotype 101. You've been reading a lot of Freud, and it's tell me about your mother. It-
Well, it's
that
funny
there's
because
a
that
reason that
this is this
middle-aged
is
people go in for therapy and you talk about your childhood.
this is where Freud actually just gels with everything else. Evolutionary psych, has the same timelines. Freud, psychoanalysis, has the same timelines. Piaget has the same timelines. Psychosocial theory has the same timelines. All of these dynamic systems has the same timelines. All of these different theories on development, they agree on one thing. These timelines are exponentially greater
Hmm.
in how young you are, how much you develop at a young age. I mean, just think how much you're developing in the fetus. You go from one cell to a human being in 9 months.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. But this is the source where it's coming from. So this is nothing new. This is actually a published JAMA network. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, peer reviewed." It's not peer reviewed. That was a preprint. That was a preprint. No, this is peer reviewed and published, and it was around November of 2020, which means it was written somewhere around August of that year. Why weren't we talking about this in November of 2020?
Because you weren't allowed to, and if you did, you were silenced on all the social media networks,
Yes.
including this one that we're on right now.
And this is one, I believe, don't quote me on this. If I'm wrong, someone correct me in the comments because comments help the algorithm. But I believe this is one of the testimonies that was deleted from C-SPAN YouTube.
Hmm.
So you couldn't watch it, even though it was on C-SPAN. It was live testimony in front of Congress. Okay, this is when YouTube has gone too far. This is when officially they've gone too far. When you cannot watch live congressional hearings,
Hmm.
there's an agenda because all it is what's happening.
So here's a word that likes to get thrown around a lot with the Orange Man. That's a coup. What you're doing is an attempted coup. You are attempting to undermine the legitimate government. That is the entire purpose of C-SPAN. That is why it was created. That is why it is publicly funded, so that everything that is said on the record in Congress is on video and it can be watched by the public. We don't. A lot of it's just crap, but it is there. It can be found. It can be watched. Except unless you are one of the largest and most powerful companies in the history of the world, and you decide, no, we know better than the government and the people for whom it serves and is elected.
Second statement, schools with the highest poverty levels. Let's go there. This is the paper. It comes from the consequences of remote and hybrid instruction during the pandemic. Oh, there's a nice chart in here. And I thought I had it on that page, but here we go. All right. So average weeks of remote or low, mid, and high poverty schools by state quartile of total remote weeks. So let's look at the left here. There's Texas. Look at that. We were one of the first to open, but these are the schools that opened first, and we see we've got a little bit of disparity because there was still, because we're Texas and we believe in local governments to state governments to federal governments, the counties and the cities still had some say. So Harris County, for instance, where I'm not in, but I'm adjacent to, opened later
Mm-hmm.
than Guadalupe County, where I am, where my son goes to school, which we were only out of school for one semester. And then there were a few hiccups in the second semester when they had a confirmed case in the class and the kids had to stay home, but it wasn't a complete shutdown. The kids in that class had to just stay home for a week or two until it was the incubation period that they estimated at the time was done, which was complete bullshit. But we know that now. But at the same time, it still wasn't a complete shutdown. At least it was a system where they were in school most of the time. So we've got definitely with not much disparity. Let me blow this up so we can see the differences in the lines a little better. And let me move us to the other side. Here we go. Does it move me and you when I do that on your end?
Not on my end, though.
Okay. Well, hopefully that comes through on the YouTube end. But there's a slight disparity between low and mid, which is kind of weird because middle class you would think would still be semi laptop class, at least able to afford the Chromebooks and everything that
Mm-hmm.
were required. And our school supplied them. Uh, and I believe Harris County, all their schools supplied them as well. Now, whether the kid had internet at home, there's the caveat right there. That's the hard part because the school can do all at once for as far as supplying the materials the kid needs, but if they don't have the internet at home, I mean, it's like me sending farmers market stuff home with you and you don't have a stove, right? It's not going to work out too well.
Yeah.
But so then we have let's see, high poverty schools. So the high poverty schools, we got looks about double. Yeah, about double. So they were out of school for about they were remote or out of school for about double amount of time. So still a disparity there. Those are the states that opened up earliest. Still about a double disparity. But let's go to the right a little bit. So low poverty. You notice something with that? Low poverty in the next round of states to open is higher than the high poverty in the first round of states that opened.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad. And the disparity actually steps a little bit to mid poverty and then high.
Yeah.
It's about double again. Now, the jump isn't as big to the next round of openings. Uh, low is higher than low in any others, higher than mid in any others, but not as high as the high poverty. And then mid is about
But
equal
then
to the,
there's a big jump.
then there's a massive jump. And then we get to the last places to open. Where's New York in there? New Jersey, Nevada. New York didn't open that early.
Not that I recall.
Did they open schools earlier than they opened
But
businesses?
if this is statewide, the New York City may have been different.
Oh yeah, which actually might be the bumping up those high poverty numbers because just like in Texas, Harris County bumped up the high poverty numbers.
Mhm.
Yeah. But look at, I mean, look all the way on the right there. These states that opened up way late, weeks of remote learning, we're looking at 15 to 25. Yeah. The even the rich people in those states were at a detriment unless they had private tutors. So the super elites still got theirs. But even people with a lot of money, their kids were suffering from this. So it's there's definitely a class difference, but there's also just a massive difference with who opened first and who spent longer in remote learning. And when we look at the remote learning, you're going to have a even greater negative result in the high poverty areas because not all of them had access to easy internet. But let's go to the left. Oh my goodness. This is just a couple days ago. A day ago when I brought this up, but I was researching like Monday or something. World Socialist website. About as far left as you can get. What's the headline? If you're just listening, CDC urges actively infectious COVID-19 patients to return to work and school. This followed the treat COVID like the flu, 24 hours fever free. Oh, if you want to look this article, I'm not going to give it too much airtime, but if you want to look it up, read it. It's like, we're all going to die because you keep making us sick by sending people back. You can't treat it like the flu. Well, guess what? The flu can be contagious even after as well. The 24-hour rule is like the social distance rule. It was kind of just arbitrary, and it's like most times you're done with the
Mhm.
virus by the time it is, and everything else is just flaking. But yeah, maybe we just want to get on with our lives, and the CDC finally realized that. Although they're pimping the booster again, the 10th booster. But
Senator Johnson from Wisconsin had a very lengthy hearing on I mean, we can say more than we used to could on YouTube, but I'm not even sure we can say this. Shall we say the jab complications? Um, and he had names you would know. Malone, I think Weinstein also testified before the committee, a bunch of people. Uh, and they touched on some of these topics of what is happening, the impact on society, especially the young. And this is why I've been griping about Nuremberg 2.0, because it is not an exaggeration to call this a crime against humanity, because that is how far reaching the negative effects have been. You can't just say this person did this thing and this happened. It is so much bigger than that. And the growing sentiment amongst both the left and the right to just put it behind us and move on is sickening on multiple levels. One, because if you have any sense of justice, you should want at least the biggest people who made the biggest and worst decisions to be punished. But as I've been griping about ad nauseum for weeks now, it's going to happen again. The more we just, yeah, well, what are you going to do? The the worse it gets, because no one in power is getting punished for the terrible things they keep doing.
hold on, I'm giving you something that's gonna.
Oh, goody.
Let me see if I can find. Let's see. Here we go. Let's go to the American Red Cross site itself. Oh shoot, they flooded their site with other stuff, so you can't find what I'm looking for. But that's okay. The Twitterverse has us covered. All right, everybody. Hold the edge of your seat here. You can't give blood for a year after your last.
Oh, okay.
Why not?
Um, one of the things, so uh Senator Johnson's office um put to get condensed these hours of testimony down to a 15-minute clip. If you can find that and watch it. And in that clip, one of the things in that clip is Dr. Malone pointing out that these are and should be regulated as gene therapies. They are not the V word, and they never have been. And we need to stop calling them that and stop treating them like that, because that's not what they are. These are gene therapies. And I know he's pointed this out, and I've heard other people point this out in the past, that even if you look under the copyright filings for these things, they're under gene therapies. That's not what we were told they were.
Yeah. And this is tough because on my end, you know, if YouTube would have allowed it, but I didn't push the buttons, that is, I mean, you're not, say everybody makes a big deal about spike. You're not injecting spike into you. You're injecting RNA, which is basically half of the helix of a DNA that is coded to produce a spike protein. Because basically, uh, your DNA is transcripted, and then that little protein makes an RNA, a messenger RNA, which goes to another thing, which makes the protein. All right. The ribosome takes it to make a protein, and the protein comes out, whatever the code is. And then this little spike is there from the code. So yes, it is technically gene therapy. Now, where there hasn't been a wealth of evidence to some of the things they're talking about, and I don't know if they talked about it in this testimony because you just brought it up to me. But if it actually becomes part of your DNA after that, that's where the slippery slope lies. But the mRNA itself codes for a protein, so it is gene therapy because you are basically injecting a gene into your body, or at least the code to one protein development side of that gene. Uh, the problem isn't that we did mRNA. The problem is we did spike protein. Why didn't we do membrane?
Mm.
I don't know. Now, I kind of know a little bit of that answer because there was a chart I saw a long time ago, way back in the beginning of this, where spike had the highest rate of creating antibodies, but at the same time, it's the most dangerous of them. So I don't know if they did a risk reward that membrane does it less, but it's safer versus the spike does it more, but it's more dangerous. That I don't know. Maybe just someone had, level one thinking and just saw the surface. Oh, we can do more with spike. Well, there's probably a reason for that. Two reasons. One, it's the closest to the surface, or it's closest to the interaction with your cells. But then the other is your body's like, holy shit, this is dangerous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to read that book I left down there? I know
No,
you've got
no, no.
lots of books to read lately,
No, that's gonna have to be spring break, reading material
because
because
that's he gets Dr. Malone gets into some of the technical details about that.
yeah. So I got about another 20 pages to write on my neuroscience final. I did get a higher grade. Oh, I told you if you want to get me in a good mood, get me tonight because I went into my not final, midterm. I went into my midterm yesterday in behavioral analysis and learning, and I came out of that exam going, I fucked up. And I checked my grade today and I had a 92. I was like, okay, we're good. We're good. But it was one of those things that if anybody has test anxiety, here's a strategy that worked for me yesterday. And I know it works. I just still didn't have confidence afterwards because I just kind of beat myself up over not being as prepared as I should have been. But go ahead and just answer all the questions you know. And then go back and just back work
Mm.
and try to make sense of the questions you didn't know right away and you didn't just you didn't study hard enough or whatever, because sometimes the rest of the test gives you clues or jogs your brain on the answers to the ones you skipped. And sometimes you can just bullshit and give it a wing and hope for partial credit. There's my lesson in test taking.
Yes, which will be applicable to all the kids who have had the life sucked out of them by the Princess Bride life sucking machine.
Oh yeah, I forgot to have that queued up.
Yeah, and it's the part about that scene that is so creepy is the calm clinical way that the torturer reacts, and that is the you know break a few eggs to make an omelet sociopath. And then the kind of people that I think we are dealing with far too often that get us into this situation, because I do think there were some type 1 type 2 error things going on with some people, but I think some people just didn't care. I don't care how this impacts these people. This helps me. So here you go. This is what we're going to do. What else
Uh,
did you have for us to rant about?
I was looking up the life sucking thing. All of the clips on YouTube have copyright things on them, so I don't know how much we could use. We got in trouble one time. What was the movie that Chuck had us or you had queued up? We were talking to Affable Gentleman at the time, and I had to clip the whole thing out because apparently
Mm,
5 seconds of the thing was copyrighted.
that's really annoying. Yeah, I don't remember what that was. That may have been, no, I think it was when we were talking to Steven that I used Dallas Buyers Club,
No, no, this
and I
this
used
was
that
this
on,
was
and I
some
just put that on
fantasy
mute.
movie because we were talking about
I don't remember.
Witcher. Yeah, well, either way, it's clipped out, so we can't even go back to the memory banks. But yeah, it was like 5 seconds of a movie.
Oh, it was uh Return of the King, and it was probably the music. I should have just had it on mute because I was comparing the look of Gondor when Gandalf rides up and you first see the
No, it was an
city.
older movie. It was like an 80s movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's annoying. Now I'm gonna have to go
I
back and
wanted to say
watch
Farrah
that to.
Fawcett.
I have to go back and watch that to jog my memory.
Yeah,
But
either way, we had to clip it out. So I just don't want to give it a chance
I,
here.
I remember complaining about why does the CG look worse than stuff that is decades older,
Yeah,
which is
that was the topic. Yeah.
which is a lot of everything of why is everything getting
Yeah,
worse.
someone like transformed into something. It was like she turned into like a bird or the other way around, something like that.
Oh, then that may have been Lady Hawk. Was that the name of it? I think it was a
Yes.
TV movie. Yes.
That was it. Yes.
Yeah, where these two lovers were cursed, and so one of them was like a bird during the day, and the other one was a wolf at night, or something like that. And so they could never be together. I think it was a TV movie. Um, yeah, really good and better looking than a lot of the garbage we get today. Which, um, geez, who was I listening to recently that was talking about this? The Mike Rowe. One of Mike Rowe's recent podcasts, he had on a guy by the name of Bill Whittle, who's done a lot of stuff, and he's working with the Daily Wire now with their, some of their media production stuff that they're getting into, because he's worked as a producer and an editor in Hollywood, and he was making the point that, and this was a while ago when he was doing this, and think about how much worse it is now, that there is a whole industry of people who's, the middle managers of Hollywood, who their entire purpose is to give notes. If you've ever heard that of the studio giving notes to the production people of, well, have you thought about, or maybe we should try this. And the example he gave was, you could have an absolutely perfect movie, but this person has to justify their existence. So if you sat them down to watch a rough cut of Schindler's List, then this middle manager would go, "Oh, it's good. It's good, Steven. I don't I'm just spitballing here. I'm not saying, anything's wrong. I'm just, what if Schindler had a talking dog? Have you thought about that?" And we've talked about, you talked about this with the bloat of admin in, not, this was just a few weeks ago where you brought up the chart of the bloat in administrative versus actual medical personnel
Mm-hmm.
in the medical industry. And this bloat has gone all through all industries. And a big culprit of that is academia, which has had this tremendous bloat because of the influx of free money. And so they keep churning out these people who don't have any real skills and have to justify their existence. And so they keep perpetuating their system, and they become the self-licking ice cream cone. That, okay, you can be as, you know, uh oh, Gordon Gecko. You can be as Gordon Gecko as you want in your company of greed is good and all you care about is the bottom line. Well, that's fine, but your HR department is entirely infused with lunatics
Mm-hmm.
who are fully bought into the woke agenda.
Well, it's not just the woke agenda. Let's put the best face we can on it. Uh, it's the, and you see this in the concept creep of the woke agenda. It's the, well, there's nothing really going wrong, so let's nitpick. It's the same as, oh, well, when we talk about the woke agenda, there's not a whole lot of overt racism going on. Microaggressions. Ah, yeah. Okay, now we got
Mm-hmm.
something. Let's go with that. Let's go with that. I'm cracking up. I've been cracking up since you started talking about that because I have a client that works for the Rodeo Commission. He volunteers for the Rodeo Commission every year, and apparently they had a system for their buses and shuttles and everything. And someone new was elected to a board, and then a board was formed, and all the people were around on the board, and they had memos about the memos, and they decided to make the shuttle system more efficient. He was bitching. I mean, he was on his soapbox. I gave him a box to stand on to be on his soapbox about how long it took him to get out of the rodeo, because their system was absolutely horrid. He was like, we had a perfect system. It was great. But somebody decided to try to be useful because they have to justify their existence. And that's what's happening in a lot of these admins and HR departments is we have to justify our existence. So, oh, we need a program about this. I see it at school. There's little desks with this committee about this or whatever and
Mm-hmm.
awareness and blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah. And I'm like, you just needed to spend money on pamphlets because you have a budget. I think that's it.
Let
You
me
could like cut that part of the budget and I could have a lower tuition. That would be nice.
That would be really nice.
Oh,
Let
we
me
did
share a
the
screen real quick.
Oh yeah, we did the math the other day with me and another client because we were talking about going to school back in 98 versus now. I spent as much at Oklahoma State, so a major state university, for tuition room and board and my meal ticket and my sports pass as I spent on, then that's for 5 classes, as I spent on 2 classes. Currently, no room and board, no anything extra, just 2 classes.
This is the best case scenario, benefit of the doubt for the kind of people we're talking about. And you should recognize this. Chris Williamson, toxic compassion.
Ah, yes. Who
It's a
is he
lot of
talking to? Because I remember this conversation.
well, this is a post from December of 2023, but he brought it up again with Weinstein, and
Okay.
that's where that jogged my memory because I'd heard him say it before when I'd been listening to him with you while we were fishing, and um,
Oh yeah, that was with that Sarit Chawa, whatever her name is.
yes,
Yeah.
so he's brought it up before, and I love this, or as he says, the I've been trying to name a concept for months, and the meme inspiration gods finally blessed me. Toxic compassion. I love it. Let's make it go viral. Toxic compassion is the prioritization of short-term emotional comfort over long-term outcomes,
Oh, you're setting me up so good.
over truth, reality, flourishing, everything. It optimizes for appearing to do good rather than actually doing good. This is seen in much of popular culture as the desirable, fair, empathetic thing to do. People would rather claim that body fat has no bearing on health and mortality outcomes to avoid making overweight individuals feel upset, even if this causes them to literally die sooner or have a worse quality of life over the long run. Parents would sooner allow children to play computer games or watch screens and access social media every night instead of dealing with the discomfort of taking it away from them, even if it ruins their brain development, social skills, and self esteem. People would rather say that children growing up in single parent households suffer no worse outcomes than those from two-parent homes, even if this list misleads parents, children, and teachers about why kids behave the way they do, etc., and so forth. And he goes down a whole laundry list of things where you're doing the compassionate thing, but what you're actually doing is creating more harm.
No, you're doing, see, this is where he's wrong. You're doing the empathetic thing.
Mm.
Because remember, compassion is a logical empathy where you say, am I actually fixing the problem or am I just reacting to the problem?
And that's why it's toxic in the same way
Yeah.
that, yeah, there is a such thing as toxic masculinity. The problem with the radical feminists and the woke crowd is that they label all masculinity as toxic.
Pause for a second. Slight hiccup, but when this is one of those, anybody who's a parent in the audience, the meme is true. It's, kid, I've got this project I need to do. Okay, son, let me help you. I need this and this and this and this and this. Oh, all those things we don't have. Oh, by the way, it's due tomorrow. So my wife is making an emergency trip to HEB, which is our local grocery store if you're international or interstate, uh, to get the stuff we need.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it rolls. Uh, they're actually too easy on the kids in this school because he's got like 6 assignments that are overdue, and they're like, just get them in. I'm like,
No,
what
do
part of
means do.
overdue do
Yeah.
you not understand? Okay, so back on subject. So that's toxic compassion. The kid's gonna feel bad if I give him a bad grade.
Mm-hmm.
So let's give him another chance. Let's at least give him a chance to do it. No, the due date was the due date. I will say there's a little bit of disconnect now that there's so much online because even though they're going to school, all the stuff is on Canvas. And being in school and still having everything on Canvas myself, there's a little bit of disconnect where it's like, when is this due? What did I have to have by this day? And there's a
Yeah.
little bit of that, but at the same time, due is due. And if you need help with that, come to me a little earlier. And if you're the teacher trying to make that happen, then be better at communicating what you're trying to do. Okay, so let's get back on this topic. Toxic compassion. So I've got two kind of things with this. One of them was listening to Dave Smith last night because he was on Timcast IRL. They were doing a live show with the primaries, which there's a lot to talk about there, but probably for another day because we're busy people. But
Yeah.
uh, they got onto the subject of the border, and Dave Smith brought up a term that he called anarcho tyranny, and he was asked to define that, which is actually a great definition. Because what was the thing you had a problem with? Anarcho capitalism.
Hmm.
Yeah. So he defined anarcho tyranny as basically the worst of anarchy and the worst of uh, authoritarianism, both in the same bundle, because they sound it sounds like a paradox, but you basically have the worst in the same bundle. So you got people in the street doing drugs and all these things, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna let them do their thing. We're gonna be, not arrest them or whatever. And then you got someone trying to open a business, and they have to go through every hoop there is on the way, and any mistake they make, they're going to be punished for.
Hmm.
So you've got the worst of anarchy, which is laissez-faire to everything, which in the sense of, oh, you're doing meth on the side of the road. Okay, you do you. That's not good. But then you got the worst of tyranny, where you're trying to do a good thing by the book, and you're getting busted. Your nuts are getting busted at every turn.
Yeah.
So that's anarcho tyranny, and he compared that to the border, because if you're trying to become a U.S. citizen as an immigrant,
Hmm.
it's a long, arduous process. I mean, my wife from Germany just became a citizen last year. She's been here since 2020. And I mean, excuse me, 2000. She's been here since 2000, and it's 2024. That's a long
And,
time.
and you've been married for 12,
16 years. This
16 years.
16 years in 9 days. Would be 16 years.
She's been here for 24 years. She's been married to a US citizen for 16 years,
Well, she was married before me too,
and is just now.
to a military
Jeez.
officer. So yeah, but it and she had to do all the civics lessons and everything. So there's this huge process to do it legally. But then you come in on your own, and everybody's like, "Oh, have some compassion for them. They just have it bad." So that fit what you were talking about, I thought,
Mhm.
because that anarcho tyranny made me think of, it's like the parent. So the mom's getting everything ready for dinner, and the kid's like, "Mom, I want to have some candy. Can I have some candy?" No, son. We're gonna have dinner in like 10 minutes. You can have candy if you eat all your dinner. And then the kid flops on the floor, starts screaming and crying. I want the candy. I need the candy. I need the candy. And mom capitulates and gives him the candy. That's toxic compassion,
Mhm.
because the kid did not need that candy. The kid needed to wait till dinner. The kid was rewarded for bad behavior. So, what you just taught that kid, this was actually test material in the exam yesterday, by the way. What you just taught that kid was the behavior that they did was the appropriate behavior, because they got the reinforcement for that.
Yeah.
And toxic compassion reinforces bad behavior.
Big time. And it's why using the immigration example, it's why it comes and goes in waves. Because when we have an administration, or a government in general, that is actually going to follow the freaking law, because this may come as a shock to you, but we have laws on the books for how to deal with all this stuff. When we actually enforce those laws, border crossings go way down. When we signal to the world, come on in, water's fine, everybody in the pool, then now you've got thousands of people coming from China, landing in Central and South America, and then trekking the whole way up to the southern border.
Yeah, and this is where, going forward, of course, we need to stop the behavior that's happening now, which punishment should always be a last resort. But that's the only thing that's going to stop people from coming across right now the illegal way, because we've already encouraged it.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, so going forward, what I want to see from some of these candidates is, okay, so we're going to stop this. We're going to, vet the system, and it's a separate debate on how the deportation effort has to be, because another important point Dave Smith brought up, which I was like, yes, 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 was you do understand what's going to have to take place to have a 15 to 20 million dollar person deportation effort.
Yeah.
It's going to take a Gestapo military
Yeah.
style police force to do so. And I don't know if I want that long term,
Hmm.
because anything you add to the government will stay.
No, that's you. I have this queued up and ready to go. I'm not going to play it. I just wanted to show this video. It's from a month ago. I don't know why I need to give. I mean, our we've got single digit videos, and this guy's got 1.5 million subscribers, so it's not like he needs the extra support. But it's a good channel, and they do a good job of covering things from both sides. And this video in particular, how El Salvador destroyed their brutal gangs, from the Task and Purpose channel.
Yeah, not very constitutional in the US. So everybody who's
Well,
praising him right now.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. It's not entirely constitutional there, which is the problem. But here's the thing. He goes through how, he spends the first half of the 20-minute video going through how they got there in the first place, and then how this populist guy was elected and then reelected in a landslide, saying, I'm actually going to fix the problem, because he was an outsider. He campaigned as an outsider and didn't go through the normal channels and use social media rather than the usual debates and whatnot. And he won because the people were tired of it. Here's the problem. He used emergency powers that were lawful. The problem is he keeps extending them.
Yeah. We need to start requiring sunset clauses to these
Uh-huh.
things. Yeah,
So
because desperate times do have desperate measures sometimes, but we need those to come with a sunset clause at
exactly.
some point.
And that was my takeaway from this video, that especially that first half, is this has been going on for decades. El Salvador has ranked at or in the top 5 of murder capitals of the world per capita for decades, because the politicians kept kicking this can down the road until you reached a tipping point where someone says, fine, I'll do it. And what's going to happen if he doesn't relinquish these emergency powers? It's going to be yet another Latin American banana republic dictator.
Okay, so let me finish my thought on where I was going with that. And then I've got a slightly comical but almost halfway serious solution to our migrant problem. Uh, and then we'll get to the other thing that you were like, yes, 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 while we were on our little break there. Okay, so what I want to see is we need the punishment aspect of it right now because it's gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
Which deportation would be the best result there? Uh, there's a slight variant of that, even though it's indirect. With if you're gonna walk into razor wire, I'm sorry, you get it. You deserve what you get. But I don't think they need the saw blades in between those buoys. Personally, yeah, the buoys are enough.
I think we need bull sharks with lasers on them.
Yeah, I've seen the meme. Alligators with lasers, I think it was, but putting alligators in the Rio Grande or something. Yeah, no, no, no. Just the deterrent. Get the wall up. Have the National Guard actually patrolling the borders. All of those things. Okay, so that's necessary for now. But there's two ways there's a lot of major ways, but to break it down to its nuts and bolts, there's punishment, but there's also reinforcement. So punishment is you're either adding or taking away something to decrease behavior. But I think on the flip side of it, we need to incentivize the proper behavior. So now we're talking about reinforcement. So
Mm-hmm.
you either take something away or you add something to reinforce behavior. So I think this is more of a negative reinforcement because we need to make it easier for people to get in legally. Maybe not easier from an intelligence standpoint or how useful they are to the country standpoint, but the amount of time it takes for this, it's probably that way because of administrative bloat.
Yes.
But we got to figure out a way to say, okay, these are the kind of people we want. We want laborers. Laborers are great. We want engineers from these other countries. Engineers are great. We want all these things. What can you contribute to the country? Okay, so now here's this process. Let's streamline it. And so a lot of the people who are coming through now illegally, some of them might funnel to those legal gates, and then we can vet them. So there, yes, we need, because of the state of the situation now, the punishment route is the first step, but then we need to find a way to transition to, yes, immigrants are great if we do it right, and we need to incentivize that.
This is this is why one of the reasons I'm leaning more and more towards RFK Jr. Um, even though luckily no one watches this show, so my wife's family won't hate me even more than they already do, because apparently the Vietnamese really hate the Kennedys. Um, they actually, we hate Nixon. They actually, feel like it. Hey, at least Nixon tried. Um, but the reason is, and I'm going to link this back to something I've been referencing lately, which is Defying Hitler, which should be required reading for everybody. And I talked last time about how you get to the end of Act One, you get to the end of the first third of the book, and now it's the January, February of 1933, and the Nazi Party is in power, and they're starting to institute these measures. And then you get to the Reichstag fire, and now you have all the left-wing parties are banned. You have all these emergency powers given to the chancellor. And he spends a whole chapter or two talking about where was the opposition. Well, the opposition were the useful idiots all along. So it shouldn't be any surprise that the opposition parties just went along with it, because they really hadn't been doing anything to fix the problem for the past decade. So why would you expect them to suddenly fix the problem now? Why would you suddenly expect them to grow a backbone now?
Well, my only rebuttal to that is I'm assuming you're talking about the Republicans not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Are the president before this one was doing something?
He actually did some useful stuff. Primarily, it was the Remain in Mexico policy, which was simply that we will process you if you stay in Mexico,
Mm-hmm. Which
rather
is a
than actually
step. It's
crossing the
it's actually
border.
something.
That's
Yeah.
something. That at least makes the administrative process more manageable. Um, but he didn't do one of the things I griped about. One of our first topics was why the wall. Well, there was a reason the wall resonated, and I don't think Trump ever got it. I still don't think Trump got it. The reason the wall resonated with so many people, both left and right, is because people who had been paying attention to this issue for a long time had been tired of having Lucy pull the football away from Charlie Brown. Of, oh yeah, we'll take care of the problem, but and this goes way back, um, to the 60s and 70s, and big time to the 1983 amnesty bill, where yeah, we're totally gonna get serious about border security, but we got to deal with the people who are here now, so we're just going to give them all amnesty. Well, what happened is the amnesty encouraged more people to come, and we never got serious about the border control. The wall was a physical, tangible barrier that no politician could go back on. Unless you're going to physically send people there with bulldozers to knock it down, it's not a promise anymore. It's a thing. It's there.
Well,
That
it's
is
also a
why it
symbol.
resonated.
It's also a symbol.
Yes.
It, it,
It
it, it's a sign of commitment. It's
yes.
like the ring on your finger for getting married.
Good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let me give my other part here, and then we'll go into my funny thing about the immigrants, the migrants. I texted you probably semi-intoxicated, smoking a cigar in the hot tub, and I was reflecting on Freud and a little bit of Jordan Peterson, and I think I figured out the connection here. The role of the husband and why it's so missed right now in all these single parent households, which are mothers, because yes, there are dads that take care of their parents. Sorry if you're the exception to the rule. Do not flame us unless it's a comment because that improves the algorithm. But also leave a like while you're at it. Especially when you hear where I'm going with this is okay. So that happens, but mostly it's the single mother. Freud, everybody talks about the overbearing mother, and the terminology makes it sound horrible, but that's not what he meant by it. He meant by the overbearing mother was the mother that will not cease to be the mother she is from the first 9 months of the child's life. And I'm going to channel my inner Peterson here. For the first 9 months of a child's life, they are always right.
Mm.
If the baby cries, they need something, whether that's a diaper change or a little milk from the mother or something along those lines, or they're in pain or whatever. For the first 9 months, the child is always right. And what is meant by the overbearing mother is they never leave that state. So back to our child, Mom, can I have candy right before dinner? The answer is no. We're about to have dinner. But the crying and whining, that's what the 9-month-old does because they need food. The crying and whining got the reward, which was the candy. You just proved the child right. And so the overbearing mother is the mother that cannot stop protecting the child,
Mhm.
cannot stop reacting to the child, which is how children learn. They do something, parent smiles, they continue to do it. This is how language is made. So we'll talk about everybody says, oh, they hear the parent say the words and they eventually pick up the language. That is not how a child learns language. Children start with what would they call it? Babbling, goo goo gaga la la la, and they continue to make just random noises until the parent reacts to something. So they're like goo goo gaga gaga ma, and the mother goes, yeah, ma 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 ma, and they go ma ma, and the mother goes, yeah, ma ma ma, and they get the attention from it. Attention is an autonomic reinforcer, which means it's something that reinforces behavior despite having to learn it. So you don't have to learn that you want attention. It's just like you don't have to learn how to satiate your hunger.
You are ruining one of my favorite parts from one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, well, okay, bring this up after I finish this example. Okay, so that's how children learn. And so if you react if they cry and you give them what they want every time, they're still learning. And then fast forward all the way till they're an adult child. So when I sent you that text, I was like, this is the role of the father. Because the father, yes, protects the family, yes, provides food, yes, all these manly things, but they don't dote over the children in the beginning because they don't have the oxytocin boost that the mother gets. There's a little bit there. You know, you're proud to be a father and you're happy and you made child, you want to protect it, but you protect it on a meta scale. You don't protect it from every little thing like the mother does. Oh,
Mm.
kid is crawling around, pebble on the floor. Oh, no, 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 don't stop. Don't eat that because you're going to choke to death, right? That's what in the days before, stay-at-home dads and stuff, that's the way it was. And we haven't been stay-at-home dads long enough for that to be adaptive yet genetically. So let's just keep going with this. But there is a phase where child starts to become more than a reactionary being. And that's where father steps in. So what I texted you was the father. What I say? The father is the protection from the overbearing mother or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
Uh,
exactly. That is the
the
yin and
stopgap for the overbearing mother.
yes,
Yeah.
that is the yin and the yang. That is where the toxic compassion comes in is, oh, we don't want to make single parent. This is why you have a two-parent household. This is why you have a masculine and a feminine, because you need the masculine to be the stopgap for the feminine, but you need the feminine to be able to have that nurturing and that development. But then you need the masculine to come in and be the disciplinarian when it is necessary. But then you need the feminine to keep the discipline from going too far. But then you need the masculine, and around and round you go. And that's why the yin yang symbol is a circle.
Hmm. Yeah, and realistically, in the early days, the man is protecting the female with the child, not protecting the child. They're protecting both because they're both vulnerable. And then it becomes a part, a portion of raising. And when it becomes a raising, well, that requires the no, you can't have candy now. Dinner's almost done. You can wait 10 minutes. No, I can make it a drive without my iPad. And realistically, as adults, you can look back and say, I made it 10-minute drive without an iPad because iPads didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
My kid can do it too.
Let's get canceled.
I think I already canceled this with that statement right
All
there.
right, fine. But this is why it wasn't because
Okay,
of
okay,
the.
let me uncancel my statement real quick.
Okay.
An aware mother can do the same. So if you happen to be in that situation where dad's a deadbeat and just takes off, if you're aware of that weakness in your parenting style because you're designed to be that nurture moment where the child is always right because that's your biggest role in that child's life. If you're aware of that and you know what's missing, then you can actually add that element to your skill set.
That is a good point and brings up something we've brought up before, haven't in a while, but the conversation Jordan Peterson had with Dave Rubin is you need to be aware that because you are two men raising a child, this is what you are going to be lacking. Ben Carson's biography, he grew up with a single mother who recognized this, and she became that, the stereotypically, almost always, when it comes to Little League, the dad is the coach. Dads are the coaches. Very rarely, even in female sports, often a man is the coach. That's just part of who we are. That's part of our makeup. You will see women coaches, but it is less likely. Well, Ben
Except in
Carson,
softball.
yeah, Ben Carson's mom became his coach. She pushed him educationally. She drove him educationally. And that's how he was able to achieve what he ultimately achieved because she became both mother and father because she had to and because she recognized that.
Okay, so let me kind of summarize all this. We've all heard of toxic masculinity, right? Toxic masculinity is when masculine traits go so far that they hurt. Not the modern version of it, but real toxic masculinity, right? Where you're abusive. You are overbearing. All of these things, you're overly jealous. You won't even let your woman, your female companion go around other guys. You fight, you beat her. All these things, those are real toxic masculinity. Toxic compassion is toxic femininity. And toxic femininity is when you can't get past that initial role of motherhood. Because at that point, after that point, it becomes damaging to the child. Again, they grow up to be big babies. They never grow up because you never let them grow up. And when you talk about, okay, so we brought up the Friendswood, uh, why are all these kids doing all these bad things? This is what I'm trying to get the bravery to get on the moms and dads post to get the heat. But I got to do it at some point. It's because you're spoiling your kids. Because it's the males that are doing it. It's the male children that are doing it. If you never let them take risk as a child, and then there are no real risks as a adolescent, what's the only risk left? Breaking the law. That's the only risk left. And they will take it out in some way, shape, or form. And that's what's happening here. That's why we have this rash of young males doing stupid shit in this town. They're they're not allowed to take risks like, I don't know, going to their neighbor's house without being chaperoned. You know, we have to have a play date, not the kids run to the park and play together. We have to have a play date with adults around.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. Eventually it's going to explode. And how it explodes is a kid invites three of his friends over and shoots two in the face. That's how it explodes.
Literally.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same mechanism, different result. Let your kids play. Let your kids. So if toxic femininity, toxic compassion sets us up for that, and that's what's happening to this country too. If you really take that analogy and just the the collective is the collective psychology of the individuals, and we've got a powder keg growing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whatever thoughts you want there, and then I'm going to give a semi-comical but semi-serious solution to the migrant situation.
Well, this is where I'll get us canceled and also make you and all the other edgy atheists mad that this is why we are a Christian country, why we were founded on Judeo-Christian principles, and why it wasn't because of the white colonial patriarchy that land-owning men had the vote. It was because that vote was assumed to be a vote for a household because you are the head of the household. And that's what it means.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about with your comment that you sent me.
Yeah. Yes. The head of the household means you also bear responsibility for that household in the same way that you are the head of your company. Your name is on the, what is it, LLC documents. You, that's your name on there. The buck stops with you. So not only are you the one in charge and you get to make all decisions, that means when and if things go sideways, it's on you, buddy. Same thing with your family. For the man, that's what it means to be a man. That's why we spent so long on that song and why you spent so long trying to make sure it actually got uploaded, because it mattered, because the lyrics of that song are poetic and philosophical and tell something true that has been lost for a generation or two, which is, this is what masculinity really means. It means you do these things, you take on these burdens, and you make decisions because this is ultimately what you feel is best for your family. And then that builds, as you just pointed out, from the out in, from the in out as well. That when you have that foundation, then that will expand out. When you have all these, it's like trying to build it's like trying to build something with Legos and off-brand Legos, and the pieces don't go together. Okay, but if all the building blocks are the same or mostly the same, because you're all following along with this basic ideal, even if you don't even if you don't ascribe to the theology from which it came, you're still following along those ideals, then it makes the whole society as a whole actually work.
Okay, let me speak to my to the maybe one probably person that's an atheist that listens to us as well, because we seem to be getting more of a red pill crowd. But this is why, okay, so I'll caution you not to get triggered. This is why I'm the least triggerable person you'll ever know, uh, other than like a true, like, super autistic savant. But yes, the founding fathers were channeling Judeo-Christian values, but those Judeo-Christian values were formed from thousands of years of people learning to be pro-social before Christianity existed. So that's why it doesn't trigger me, because I know where they came from. Everybody says, "Oh, the Bible, you got it was built on the Bible." Yeah, sort of, because the Bible was built on something else. And there are tens of thousands of years of humans learning to be pro-social that were condensed into a document.
And then you had a couple centuries of the Reformation and the Enlightenment trying to square the circle of how does the social fit with the individual.
Hmm. And there's been a lot of back and forths on that. Oh shit. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. He talked about mating habits in Judeo-Christian society throughout the ages, dependent on male to female ratios in those societies. So it actually changed what was the teaching at the time and what was considered acceptable the whole time based on how many men versus women were in any given time. So this is a complicated subject, but yeah. So yes, the founding fathers were channeling parts of the Bible that we're talking about, but that came from somewhere too. And you would say it's God breathed, and I would say it was a long time of adaptation that was condensed down by some very wise people into a document. But yeah, okay, so let's end this on a funny note. Bear with me here. Bear with me here. I have the perfect plan because what's the majority of the undocumented migrants? What is Tim Pool wanting us to say? Criminal aliens. That's the proper term. Because now you're not saying illegal aliens because no human is illegal. You're playing into their hand. Criminal aliens, though, because everybody that crosses the border illegally is a criminal. So, okay, so we've got all these people. What is the demographic of that?
It is mostly young men
Mostly
from
young
Central
men,
America.
which is
Yeah.
doing what to the United States on a very broad scale.
Demographically, it's skewing it
Yes,
younger and male.
exactly. When we were pretty much a 50-50 society, what is that going to do?
Uh-oh. Well, look what it's doing to China. Not good things.
Yeah, create a lot of young, angry males because they can't find mates. Because unless we start doing a, gosh, what's the female version? Polygynous? No, polyandrous? Whatever the female version of polygamy is. I think it's polygynous. Yeah, the female version of polygyny. So two or three males for one female. Unless we start doing that, then there's going to be a lot of young single males that are unhappy, which usually leads to violence, especially if they're in a state of poverty. I've got the solution.
Uh-oh.
Everybody's got their Ukraine flags up, right? One of the worries that some people are having, especially since the Senate is trying to pass a stupid bill that says we can draft these or allow a path to citizenship through military uh, enlistment from these people, which they're saying is gearing for World War III. But what I'm saying is they're trying to build a military of people who don't have neighbors here, just like your Tiananmen Square example.
Hmm.
Got a better solution. Here's the deal. We talked to Zelensky. If you join the Ukrainian army, you're going to get this much land, grows a lot of wheat, breadbasket of Europe, grows a lot of wheat. You're going to be wealthy. All right. If you join the army, Ukraine wins, you get this plot of land. Now, here's the part we can't guarantee, but it's almost guaranteed. You got land and money in the Ukraine. Guess what's there now? A shit ton of single women because a bunch of young men have already died.
Starting to like this idea.
Have you seen Ukrainian women? They are hot.
I have seen the memes.
And especially after this period of, not as much food production because of the war, they're all skinny. So so you got land, you got money, you've earned your place, you got citizenship in the Ukraine, and there's a lot of hot women around. Your choice. We're going to deport you, or you could go that route. Zelensky needs soldiers. He said it's cool. Or you can go back to Venezuela, where you came from.
Modern problems require modern solutions.
I'm
I love
telling you,
this.
that's the solution right there. Because then when Putin says, you send all these soldiers over here, and you say, oh, no, your ally Venezuela sent those soldiers over there. That's a Venezuelan citizen that's fighting over there. Why don't you talk to the Venezuelan president?
Yeah, not hey, that's not our problem.
Yeah,
That's
I did.
those aren't our people.
That's not a U.S. soldier.
All
So
right, I think we find the title for this video. Wherein we solve both the immigration and Ukraine crisis in the same video. Congratulations, you've
yeah,
done it.
we've done it. I'm telling you, because young men will do stupid shit for women and for reproductive value, which is supplying uh resources.
Hmm.
I just gave you every option there. And I actually did it in the right path. I didn't give you a woman. I gave you reproduction, not reproduction, resource developmental options that you earned,
Hmm.
and there are women available if they want it. That's what I gave you. So it is the correct path, whether you're a feminist, whether you're pro Ukraine, whether you're pro America, whether you're whatever, whether you're pro choice. That person has the choice to do that. You know what? I might die if I go there. But if I live through that, I'm set. Otherwise I go back to the same shithole that I came from.
Yeah. Hey, we young men have done it for generations before us, and will do it for generations after. So
And you solved the NATO problem because nobody sends troops.
there
Those were
you go.
volunteers to the Ukrainian army from
So
different countries.
from non-NATO countries, Central and South American
Exactly.
countries.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. All
Done.
Putin can say is you provided them transportation. It's like, well, we were deporting them. We had to send them somewhere. They chose to go here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course,
And
those
then
those those dudes from Venezuela are going to have a shock in the cold of Ukraine. But
all right. All right. Well, there we are, ending on a high note, solving the world's problems. So we will see y'all Friday for some Wheel of Time, where we will go into an even darker, deeper hole.
yeah, you said earlier on Friday you're available.
Yeah, yeah.
Like what? I'm done at 11
Yeah, we can do noonish.
noonish. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
we can
So
do a
what?
nooner.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'll talk to you then, and leave your comments, subscribe, send us to everybody, or at least just like make a random post on Twitter or something. We've been getting Twitter followers, so hopefully
Hmm.
that's good. I need to start posting, I guess. I'll post this episode when I put it up. Uh, anything you want to add?
Nope. See y'all next time.
Later.